introduction as well?
Sure. Hi, good morning, everybody. Tom Moen. I'm a cloud architect with Microsoft. I've been with Microsoft since 1996, and I'm a United States state and local government lead for compliance and records and eDiscovery. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Okay, great. And then, we do have a number of sessions. I'm not going to go through these all in detail. I believe you've all received the email, but we've got 6 sessions in total. So we're going to be doing one a month for the next 6 months. And so today is an overview of compliance record management eDiscovery. Next month we're going to talk about phishing attacks and unauthorized access. That's going to be delivered by Ken Rucci. Then in January we're going to switch gears and talk about MCAS and MDATP. And this content will be accessible at the link on the screen, aka.ms/SLG for state and local government -MW for modern workplace -security. So the slides will be up there, the recordings will be up there, and so you can review them in the future. Or if you have any peers that are unable to attend, they can always watch these sessions after the fact. And here's the final 3 sessions, and I'm not going to go into great detail on these, but hopefully you can make most, if not all, of these sessions. And with that being said, I'm going to hand it over to Tom.
Thanks, Tony. Appreciate that. And I'm going to share out my desktop, so hopefully everybody can see. And Tony, if you could watch the chat for questions, I will be pausing for questions, comments, concerns regularly. But if you want to type something in, if you're too bashful to come off mute and ask a question via voice, please feel free to type it in. And Tony, I'll ask you if you wouldn't mind checking that chat and interrupting me if there are questions.
Absolutely, Tom. Absolutely.
Perfect. And you can see my screen from the upper left-hand SharePoint logo all the way down to the notifications in the lower right.
Yes, I can.
And when I switch to a new screen like that, did it keep up pretty well?
Yes.
Perfect. Excellent. Well, thanks again, everybody, for joining us. We've got a big topic today, a lot of information to cover, a lot of ground to cover, and most importantly, just about every single one of the feature function capabilities that I'll be showing you today was released to the web, released to our government community cloud. So if you're in the government community cloud and you're tired of people using a commercial demonstration tenant to show you features that might not exist yet in your tenant, all of these features are lit up in the GCC, the Government Community Cloud. And there is a bit of a lag. I mean, the benefit of the Government Community Cloud is that we certify and have audits and controls in place to keep your data protected in a way that's compliant with NIST, with FedRAMP, with CGIS, with IRS for FTI, federal tax information. And those audits and those controls have to be checked every time we move data, manipulate data, or touch data as custodians of your data on your behalf. So that's why you see these delays between the commercial and the government cloud. But I'm very excited to say that all of the feature function capabilities we'll be going through today are in the GCC Government Community Cloud. So with that, there is a lot to cover today. I've got a packed agenda here. Want to first start off and talk about the Compliance Center and Compliance Manager. We were straddling between the Compliance 3.0 and Compliance Manager 4.0, but again, that Compliance 4.0 has shipped in the GCC. We'll look at permissions, what allows you to access these capabilities, and then we'll take a look at retention, search and content search, and then advanced eDiscovery. And hopefully that's what everybody was here to see today. This is typically about a half-a-day session, so you're getting a Reader's Digest condensed version, very 30,000-foot overview of these capabilities, but I hope it's very beneficial. We will make these slides available, and what I did, I took a couple of slides that we had out on our support pages, and funny as it was that these were on our support pages because they linked to what is data loss prevention. It was more of a ad or our Microsoft.com/data loss prevention. That's not the URL, but it took you to information about what is data loss prevention? What are event-driven retention policies? What is communication compliance? I replaced all of these links with how do I's. So how do I implement data loss prevention? How do I leverage event-driven retention? How do I enable customer lockbox? And again, all of these are the how do I support documents. So it's a beautiful thing, even the complete documents that cover advanced eDiscovery. So a lot of great content here, a lot of wonderful information, and again, organized it instead of the what is it to the how do I. Jumping right into compliance, and this was the Compliance Manager 3.0 that was available previous to this weekend to our GCC Government Community Cloud customers. And typically the way you got to this was through the Service Assurance Center in the Security and Compliance Center. That's a mouthful of things, and luckily I didn't use any acronyms there like the SA in the SCC, but that's where it was. The Service Assurance Center in the Security and Compliance Center. And it would show you these badges, and you could say, hey, I do need to comply with, NIST. In this case, it was a NIST 800-53 or NIST 800-37 or NIST 800-171. And these badges would show you that our services are compliant, first of all. So from a compliance perspective, the green bars at the bottom show, hey, here's Microsoft has 681 controls, and 681 of those 681 have been audited and checked and are in place. So it's not only we're talking the talk, but we're walking the walk, and it's been certified by people like the Cloud Security Alliance, and again, the NIST auditing professionals and third-party auditors as well. But although we have a compliant service, you have to be leveraging the tools for you to be in compliance. So this bottom green bar is compliant. The top green bar is compliance. And we would show you your, and I think in this case, it used to be 286. It's now 220 controls for NIST 800-53. And the beautiful thing is you can customize these. Like I was working with, and I did ask Chief Howland of the California Highway Patrol if I could use him as an example. They had a NIST-171 and NIST-53 audits done by California military, but they didn't have to comply with all 286 controls. They only needed to comply with these very particular 125 controls. So we exported the NIST 800, and you can still do this even with the new compliance manager. We exported that NIST compliance template. We removed the 165 controls that they didn't need, or 161 controls. It's hard to do math late on a Friday. And I know it's not late on a Friday, but 161 controls, and then re-imported that as a CHP, California Highway Patrol, NIST 800-53. And that was pretty cool. The only sad part about working with the California Highway Patrol is I never did get to meet Ponch or John. So that was a bummer. And older people on the call get that joke, but younger millennials, not so much. So that was Compliance Manager 3. Now what you'll see in Compliance Manager 4, we modeled this so it looks exactly like the Security and Compliance Center, the old Secure Score. So compliance folks, and again, what we divided off the Security and Compliance Center, the SCC, into a Security Center and a Compliance Center. We found that most of our customers said not all of our security people are compliance people, and not all of our compliance people are security people. We'd like different dashboards for those different folks who are responsible, and we obliged. So you will see, like the Secure Score, an overview, improvement actions that you can make, and we rank these by cost, not in dollars and cents, but implementation time, resources, end user disruption, and then impact to the compliance score. So we will rank these, and then you will see various points. And I will show this to you. As a matter of fact, let's just jump in and take a look at that now, if you don't mind. So from here, I'll take you into a tenant, and again, just know that there might be some look and feel that is different, but today you might be going to protection.office.com. Tomorrow you'll go to compliance.microsoft.com or security.microsoft.com. And in the old days, I mentioned that in the Service Assurance Center, one of the first things you'll want to do, and you'll still have to do this today in protection.office.com, but come into your settings and then make sure that your region, that you're in North America, and then make sure that your industry is selected as well. I did ask the product group some years ago, about 10 years ago, to make this list multiple selectable, because I could be in government, but I might also be in the Department of Revenue and need to comply with financial services requirements, or I might be county health organization and have HIPAA concerns, et cetera. So you can select multiple industries here and leverage that. And then to customize the documents for your audit reports and audit reviews, you can pick again your industry and location and then save that. And then from Compliance Manager, this would take you right to the Compliance Manager and your compliance score. Just a link built in here with all the information on Compliance Manager. But once in Compliance Manager, you will see Compliance Manager. You will see, as I mentioned, those improvement actions here and your overall score. And don't get freaked out by this, hey, 55% we're failing. For you, a perfect score might be 25%. I don't know why we use a percentage. I think it's pretty crazy, but we do, and I haven't fought that battle and won yet. The percentage just really doesn't mean anything. It means that I've got 14,841 out of 2,682 points. Now, 55% might be perfect for you. And in the old days, when I used to show people the secure score, I'd argue that if you were getting 100% in the secure score, that nobody in your organization was getting anything done. You should just hand out legal paper, pads and pencils, because nobody could be using technology with you locked down as tightly as that. So here, you might have a 25% score. Maybe you only have 2 assessments that you need to comply with, a local assessment or a state assessment. Like, in California, I was doing this demo for some folks in California, and when Kamala Harris was the AG, they put a SB in place and then instituted law for California Data Breach Act, and that SB 1386 is in here. So there are all these custom assessment and templates. There is 1386 database breach right here, and that might be the only thing. Like this department, that might be the only assessment that they need, and they might be achieving all 14 of 14 points, and that is just great. But you might have other assessments. So in your assessments, first and foremost, there are these assessment templates. You can create assessment templates. You can create them from scratch. You can extend, as I mentioned, the California Highway Patrol took a NIST 800-53, modified it. So they exported that template, they modified it, popped it into the sample file, and then imported that. So you can simply upload a template. So if you've got a template that is germane to you, you can upload that and then build the template. And don't be worried, it's not creepy. These are pretty straightforward. There's a sample template file. It's in Excel, a comma separated values file. It's nothing hard. It's not like the old days. It's what this template is, what product it's covering, whether it's Azure, Office 365 Dynamics, what certification you're going to achieve, and then what are the controls and the control families, the actions, and the dimensions of this control. And again, there's great learning and education on how to do this. Compliance Manager is a fantastic tool to help you get through your audits. Now, if you don't have the wherewithal, or if you think, gosh, that wasn't an SDK, I really see that I didn't need development skills, but even filling out that darn template looked too arduous and too difficult. There are assessments that are already built. So, and then there are third parties who build these assessments, and Microsoft has 181 today. It's now showing 243 in here. We're deploying another 145 templates, so we'll have 325 templates at the end of the day. But you can see these. So again, there are some that are Alabama, Alaska, Albania, very country or organization specific. So you can, I've been talking a lot about California. I don't know why, but I can search for California, and a couple of days ago there were only 5 in here. Now it looks like we've got 6 templates in here. So growing all the time. You will see some difference between premium templates and standard templates, and the premium templates do require you having the advanced compliance SKU. But again, after I say, yep, this is a template like the data breach that I was showing here, it shows up on my dashboard, and then I can go through and make sure that I am in compliance. So I can define what the duties of the data processors are, et cetera. So if I'm looking at my improvement actions, what can I do to get a higher score? I could do something like, and I don't know what this is for, a data protection baseline. I could come out here and say, hey, I need to implement identity lockdown. I need to control Azure information protection. So by clicking on this, how do I encrypt content and protect content with sensitivity labels? This will show me that this helps me comply with 800-171 and 800-53. So it shows me what controls I'm satisfying, how I'm satisfying that, how to implement, and there's in many cases even a launch now or do it for me, an easy button. So this is really pretty cool. And then it's not just about the control. I've got documents. So if I've got a plan document, a test document, an implementation document, I can put those documents here. If there's somebody I should assign this to, I can assign this to an individual within my organization. If I've got test notes or additionals, and so again, it's people, process, and artifacts, documents that go along with my content or along with my control. So I'm going to pause right there for any questions, comments, concerns as we switch over. Anything in the chat there, Tony?
No, not yet.
Wow. All right. Just wonder if people can give a thumbs up or a happy face if they're happy and they know it. Place an emoji. I don't know. Anyway, this is Compliance Manager, and hopefully, again, this will help you a long ways to becoming compliant within compliance across a, again, very compliant service. So you'll find that by going to compliance.manager.com. Know that if you don't get there, and this is one of these things that is not 100% fully baked yet, in the GCC. We don't have all of the role groups here. So I do have like global administrators, and I can see who the global administrators are, what their capabilities are, et cetera. But they're in the SCC, the Security and Compliance Center. This is where you'll custom create role groups and add users to those role groups to get permissions like access to the Compliance Center. And there are always various levels, like this is a Compliance Manager reader. I can only read things. I can only view Compliance Manager content. I can't add a template or work on a template or do anything like that. So then there are assessors, and then there are administrators as well. And if you don't see a role that is in here and you need to add it, like I was working with the Department of Corrections in a state in the Northeast, and they said, well, gosh, here at the state capitol, we've got to have these people enabled to export like eDiscovery content. They need to RMS decrypt content. They need to manage alerts. They need to create cases and view cases. They need to be able to add custodians. They need to be able to check audit logs. A whole lot of capabilities here. And then they assign them to certain people within their organization. And then they said, well, you know what? Out in the institutions, we have people that also need to do searches and look for content for FOIA or public records requests. So I copied that role group with all of these assigned roles and then created a new one. And this is DOC, Department of Corrections Institutions. And this is only people in the detention centers, et cetera. And you can see that all they can do is really preview, search, and purge or hold content. And they even have some external, like I've added myself here with my external email addresses. And I only show you this so you know that my email isn't #1bieberfan@hotmail.com. But again, I can toss my email address in here, and maybe there's a Tom Jr. and a Tom Sr. That are lawyers and legal aides outside of the city, state, county that I work with. So again, know that you can create these permissions, you can add people to these roles and be off to the races. Now, next, we're going to talk about information governance as it pertains to retaining content, records management with a file plan, events and dispositions, and then being able to classify content with sensitivity labels or retention labels. We only have two types of labels in Office 365. There's a sensitivity label for protecting content that is confidential or needs to be protected. Again, HIPAA, FTI, with a sensitivity label. And then we've got a retention label for retaining content for 90 days or 7 years or 10 years or employee records forever. And you can create as many of these labels as you desire. You can automatically, semi-automatically, or manually apply these labels, which is really cool. And when I say automatically apply them, the neat thing here is that I can, by a location, say that, and this will work in like any SharePoint site, any OneDrive site, any team site, but I can come into like a individual folder here, and I'm pretty sure I clicked on this just to show you that you can do this with any old document library. You can come in here and say, hey, in this claims folder, for example, I do need to apply information rights management. So I can say, hey, I'm going to apply information rights management policies, or I can say I'm going to take this retention label, because not only do we need to protect this content, but we need to preserve this content. So let's say that these are Department of Transportation claims. I can apply that DOT 90-day and say, apply that to items that are already existing in this folder. So one customer that I worked with, they were working with these COVID stimulus claims. There were fraudulent claims. They did, in fact, create a claims folder in everybody who worked in that department, and they did apply a retention policy for that content. So again, you can apply these labels automatically, semi-automatically, or in this case, I can come out here and go back to my documents and, whoops, I didn't want to do that. Go back to my documents in my OneDrive, and here within OneDrive, if this annual financial report needs to have a retention label applied to it, again, I could do that via text, or again, apply this 90-day retention policy. Again, many of my labels in this tenant aren't published. That's why I'm only seeing one label here, but you can see a whole plethora of labels. I had one customer that had up to 1,400 labels, believe it or not, until they culled that down to a manageable number of labels. So let's go back here and we'll take a look at working with and managing labels and managing retention policies. And normally I spend a great deal of time asking a great number of questions about public records requests and how you do records, what could be done better, what solution, if any, you're using today. We don't have the luxury of that time today. Happy to do that in the future.
Hey, Tom,
in this high level over, oh, go ahead.
Before you switch gears, I had a comment from Brian Hively. say
Sure.
when you tries to load compliance, at first it looked like it wasn't loading, but it loaded slowly. Does it take a while? Is there for the content to load?
It shouldn't, and that's the benefit of us moving from the security and compliance center to the compliance.microsoft.com compliance manager. These are all new servers, very high performant. It's new business logic running. Should be very performant, but because we're in this loading up and deploying features, that might be what's getting in the way. So sorry about that. Again, we do roll these features out tenant by tenant or customer by customer. So unfortunately, with this feature, you might be at the front of that line, like my tenant is, or with that feature, you might be at the back of that line. But give it some time. I mean, again, this stuff was just released to the web this week. Super, super great question. Thanks for asking it.
Okay, well, one other question. It sounds like
Sure.
it has resolved for Brian, so that's good to hear. Got a question from Paul Battle about SEC 525, and this might be a question for Daniel or Kevin. Have there been any discussions about using custom assessment templates with Vita for SEC 525? And if not,
And which one was that? SCC?
SEC 525. I believe it's a Virginia compliance requirement.
Yeah, let's just take a look here, and we'll look at our assessments and see if
That's a state specific.
Yep.
set of
And I did
policies.
show like California state specific. And again, if you'd like some help working on that, let us know, because we've got a team at Microsoft, like all of these others, Alabama, Alaska. And I should have just done AL. There's Alabama, Alaska, Argentina. I realized Argentina is not a state in the United States, but California, China. So if you've got a specific template and you want some help work on that, we'd be more than happy. So again, you do see the normal standard ones, but there are generally some US and then state specific things in here. We're more than happy to work with you on any Virginia specific policies that you have.
Okay. Thanks,
Good.
Tom.
You're welcome. And then I in this holds and preservation, so we move into this. I've created this wedding cake metaphor, and I use the height of the bar for the number of users that are going to be impacted by this policy, and the width of the bar for the amount of content. So in these bottom two layers here, I should point out that these are E5, or again, advanced compliance, and I forgot my pen, so I'm doing this on my touchpad with my finger. I'm actually pretty impressed with myself. And then you should also know that these are very broad-based. Again, the most amount of content in your corpus and the greatest number of users. And then I would do a third level here for very explicit or implicit, but I can't make a three-dimensional chart like three-dimensional chess on Star Trek. And I don't know how good the Queen's Gambit would be at 3D chess, but from an implicit to a very explicit policy. So as we move up, we're moving to more explicit policies. So I can say, hey, from our information governance, information management, we're going to create a retention policy to say, I'm going to hold all OneDrive content for 1 year. But you might have a classification label like that 90-day DOT that says, nope, I'm going to purge DOT content after 90 days. So you can have these very explicit labels out here. And then we did add modern group locations for our Teams users to hit content that is in a team site, or modern group members. So folks who are in a Teams group. And then they're query-based for eDiscovery, core eDiscovery, advanced eDiscovery. And then at the tippy top here is our departed users or inactive users who have left the organization, and we need to retain their content. I took these retention hold layers and applied them to the eDiscovery reference model, EDRM, And you can see that, again, these bottom three are more information governance, information management, but we do have the preservation and query-based ones as well. There are certain principles that apply here, that retention is always going to win over deletion. The longest retention period will win, the shortest deletion period will win. But again, remember that there's explicit inclusion will always win over implicit inclusion. So that's another important thing. So if I do have a purge policy that's shorter than a retention policy, but that purge policy is explicit, that's going to fire first. So again, it's tough to wrap your head around these things, and we've got great documents that we will send as a follow-up to today. I already covered this model here. The cool thing as we move into eDiscovery, and then I'll just be done with these slides, is in most tools, this is a very linear process. Now, the eDiscovery reference model, when this was first created, they just basically said that as relevance increases, volumes should decrease. And that's what our tools are all about, is making it easy for you to organize, minimize, analyze the content that you have in a search. We no longer have to do this straight through processing, so we kind of flip this model on its end and allow you to have, like maybe Sally's out there doing searches and stuff, and then Joe's doing a collection, and Bob's doing an analysis, and somebody else is going out and setting a hold. So you don't have to have a single person, you don't have to have a straight through process. And the really cool thing about our advanced eDiscovery tool is a lot of these things are automated for you on your behalf. So you will see a lot of automation that occurs. So let's jump into retention, and then we'll slide right into advanced eDiscovery. The last thing I'd cover off on from an eDiscovery perspective is that we do have multiple states that have a single tenant with every division and department, and you might not want somebody from Department of Corrections to search your human services information, and likewise you might not even want somebody from Aging and Adult Services under DHS to search Child Protective Services, and you don't want somebody from those DOC institutions to search and discover Child Protective Services. So we do have compliance boundaries and information barriers to keep that content separate. Now, from that, I'm going to just bounce into our compliance center again. And first, from a records management perspective, information governance, retention policies, and we can look at our dashboard. How much content do we have on hold? Where is this hold? I can import content from other locations here, and I can create these policies like I was talking about, that OneDrive 1 year. So I'll just create a OneDrive 1 year, and I can describe that if I want to. Now, in the old days, we didn't really have a retention policy. All we had was a purge policy that would say, hey, I don't care what happens. An end user can delete this junk within 1 year. I'm not going to retain it. I don't care what happens to it, but I'm absolutely going to get rid of it 1 year after it was created. The first thing we did is we added a when modified in here. The second thing we did is added true preservation. So now I can say, hey, I want to keep this stuff forever. And again, I can choose specific locations to keep forever if you do need to have that, like those employee records that we saw. But I could, I'm going to keep this OneDrive content from 1 year, but I want to keep it around if it's hot data, if it's being modified, if users are creating new versions of a SharePoint document, checking it out and checking it in. So I'm going to say I'm going to retain this OneDrive content because it's valuable and it's being modified from when it was last modified for 1 year. So now, even if an end user deletes the file from his OneDrive, it will be held until this 1 year from when it was last modified expires. And then again, you can choose these locations, or you can say, hey, apply this policy only to these very specific areas. Again, I can make this apply to Teams chat or Teams channel messages. But again, today we were talking about OneDrive. So I can come out to OneDrive, and again, I can choose specific OneDrive accounts, and we've made that a whole heck of a lot easier than before. Or we can exclude OneDrive accounts and say, hey, I'm going to put a 1 year on everybody, but again, the DOT. So you can do that and then review your settings and create this policy, and you're off to the races. Now moving up from there, records management, again, my second layer on that wedding cake, and traditional wedding cake, not a Duff or Ace King of Cakes or any of those crazy cakes. But we can take a file plan now. And if you use a tool for records management that has a records plan and a file plan, you can import that file plan. So there is, again, a template that you can pop your file plan into and import that. And then again, now we're seeing our employee records forever, my DOT 3 months. So I will see my actions here. I will see any events. I can create events to say, I want this to be 1 year after this contract expires. Or I was working with a human services and they said, well, we've got transportation, like taking old people like me to the mall to walk around and get their steps in. And we only need to keep that 1 year after that contract expires. But there are ambulance contracts for taking people for medical care, and they might provide care in transit. We need to keep that for 10 years after that contract expires. So you can have various events, and then you will have dispositions and disposition reviews here. And then lastly are your classifications. Again, the most explicit you can get, and you will see labels and label policies. Now, the one big change here when we move into the Compliance Center, you have your records management, and inside of your records management, and then this is where my wedding cake falls apart. That's why I showed it in the other tool. But this gives me my file plan. I can still import a file plan, and my label policies, events, and dispositions. And then under information governance is where I create my labels, my label policies, import retention policies, or create my retention policies. So
Hey, Tom, we have a question.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So if you have a location with a policy and label with a file plan, which takes precedence, the label or the file plan?
Yeah, again, it would depend on that explicit versus implicit. And if you have two policies, again, then it's going to be the longest retention is going to win, the shortest deletion is going to win. So again, look at those policies. And again, I'll send the link to the documentation out there.
Thank you.
Yep. Now, this, again, we're getting more explicit by creating this retention label. So look at all the features that you now have out here. I can retain this for a very specific period of time. Again, I could make this 10 years from when it was last modified. Now I've got some other things. When it was labeled. So yesterday we didn't have GDPR. Today we do have GDPR. Yesterday we didn't have to retain GDPR. Today we do. So I can say, hey, from when it was labeled, I'm going to keep this 10 years. Or if it's an employee activity, I had a customer that said, we keep content 100 years after an employee leaves the organization. And that was like 100 years. So somebody in 80, what'd you do? Or 90, they showed me all these laser discs, and 90% of the laser discs had laser rot, and I don't even know where you can get a laser disc reader anymore. But you can, and then this expiration of contracts. And then if you want to create a new event type, boom, right here, create a new event type. What do you want to do? Delete or trigger a disposition. And now we do have multi-state disposition reviews. So you can say, hey, I want to, and that's in the next step, but I want to say, I'm going to send this to records, send it to compliance, send it to legal, then purge the content. Or retain content forever. And for you can put locks on these as well. We moved that out of the UI. But again, just know that you have a lot of additional feature function capabilities. The last way you can retain content here, and it was funny because I was working with a customer and they said, hey, I'm in your demo and I'm going to compliance.microsoft.com. And you're probably seeing that I do have two URLs here. All the demos you're seeing today are being done from the Netherlands. I've got a virtual machine in the Netherlands that I'm running. That's why you're seeing two clocks here, and it's 5:43 p.m. in the Netherlands, 9:43 in Seattle. But I digress. But this person went out to compliancemanager.com, and just like the comment on it's loading a little bit slowly, they said, I'm not seeing all the things, like I don't have an eDiscovery. And I said, well, click the customized navigation, because you can specify, if I'm a compliance manager, or a data officer, I only want to see those 2 menu items. I can configure that for me, information governance and records management. But if I am doing eDiscovery, I can add that to the menu as well. So from there, with either core, and what core eDiscovery adds above content search is an ability that I don't have a lot of demo cases in this tenant, but I can add a demo case here and then open that case. And when I open that case, you'll see that I can hold content. So content search allows you the quick and easy, rapid search capability, but it doesn't have any ability to hold content. It doesn't have an ability to have an export of content. So the really nice thing here is that I can hold content. Now, I got about half my customers will create a hold first, and then they'll do a search second, because you can say, hey, I only want to search those locations on hold. Or you can go the other way that the other half of customers do, and you can create a new search. And then when you're done with that query, you can say, hey, now I want to go ahead and put this query on hold. So within here, I can do that. I do not know why I'm not seeing my query here. Let's try to zoom out a little bit. There we go. Sorry about that, folks. And I apologize for the smallness here. Now, when we're generating our query, I can do a keyword list. Like I was in this city, and that day there was a water main that broke, and a parking garage got flooded, and cars got ruined, and people's basements got ruined. So again, I can say, hey, search for everything that has the words flood and main in it. These are just my keywords. I can say search for those keywords across all the things that I have on hold, or these very specific locations. And again, I can get specific with sites, with users, with groups, etc. Or if I want to get more complex here, I can get out of the keyword list and use keyword query language. And with keyword query language, I can do things like, well, somebody might have put in the email flooding, floods, flooded, or the parking garage flooded. So I want to put a wildcard in there and say, anytime you see flood in something else, and they might not have capitalized, Main, it might, instead of Main Street, it might have been water main or Main Street. So I can do things like that. There's a whole guide on this keyword query language to take you through the properties, the conditions, ands or nots, dates. So I can do things like come back in here and say, okay, I want to add a condition like within the last year. I want to add, this author or these participants. So I can come in here and say, hey, I'm going to pick this date range and use my date picker to pick January of this year and look for that content. Or I can, in my keyword query language, just say last year. So again, get familiar with keyword query language. It will help you a bunch. Now, I've been in core eDiscovery, and core eDiscovery is great. It does searches, it does holds, it allows you to export this content. Above and beyond that, though, we have these great capabilities inside of advanced eDiscovery. Now, this is a true eDiscovery tool. It allows you things like being able to review content. It allows you, again, to automate the collection, the analysis of your content. There are some great additional settings here. I can name this case. I can number this case. I can close the case. I can delete a case. I can remove the holds from this case. I've got a lot of great tools in these settings, and these are per case settings. I've got global settings and then case settings. I can say, hey, I need to add another person, like my external legal aid and my external legal counsel. I can add permissions, role groups to this case. If this is a DOC case and I need both the DOC main and DOC institution people to access this case. And again, if I'm outside legal counsel, all you have to do is give me the https compliance.microsoft.com. All they'll see is eDiscovery and advanced eDiscovery. And back here at those cases, the only thing they'll see is their cases. their one case or their 5 cases. They won't see all of the cases in your environment. The next thing I'm going to do here is determine my data sources. Another super great capability that we've added here today is that we've got data connectors that have shipped. And these data connectors allow us to take Android Archive, AT&T text messages, Bloomberg instant messages, or I had a customer that was using Zoom meetings and then they're like, holy heck, we didn't know there was no eDiscovery. We didn't know that there was no ability to hold. We didn't know that there were, on and on and on. So now we can connect to those Zoom meetings. Now, this is a data connection. It's not an import of data. You're not exporting the data and then importing it. This is a connection. And so these connections can be added in these data sources. This used to say custodians. Now it's data sources because we've got custodians and we've got data locations that we can add. And I can add custodians and it can be a whole team or a distribution list, or it can be individuals. And then I can communicate with those people to let them know that they're on hold or to keep them in the blind. I can download this and bring it into court. I can resend if 0 of 4 people are acknowledging this. I can look at the portal content, when it was sent, the issuing date, an acknowledgement link, the portal, how many holds are you on, who issued this, is this our issuance, is it a reissue, am I being released? All of these capabilities, a reminder, and then I've got my custodian. So I have kept Nestor, Alex, and the finance team in the blind here. So they do not know that they're on hold. So I can choose to or not to notify them. Then I can do my searches. I can do my holds. If I've done my searches first, I can take that search and copy and paste it to hold. If I've done my holds first, I can search just those hold locations. And then once I'm done with that search, I can look at my statistics. How much data did I find? What were the top locations? What were the queries that I used to find this information? And I can download all of this information if I so desire. I can preview these results, and then I can add the results to a review set. I can take a rough sampling of this data. I can delete this query, or I can copy this if it's useful and paste it into another case. I can rerun this if it's aged. So beautiful capabilities here. Then when I've got my searches, and I can literally have thousands of searches here, I can add that content as I showed you to a review set. And then when I come into review set, this is where the power really becomes great. In this review set, we automated. So you automatically have a automated gen for review and immaterial items. And then so these items are immaterial. When I click on this, you're going to see that, hey, this is showing me the near duplicates out here. How do we get to, I'm going to remove my tagging panel. You really do want to have a big screen and not run this in a VM, but it's showing me that there are some near duplicates. I think I've got others in here with a lot of near duplicates, so like a site icon. So for some reason we came up with this icon. Now, sneaky people like to hide text underneath graphics. So we do have this text view. So if there was text, we'd see it here. But again, I can look at these near duplicates. Now you're probably wondering, well, where the heck did that near duplicates thing come from? In the settings, we have an ability for you to manage when is something similar or dissimilar. And you can set this down all the way to, I think, 40% is the lowest we go. Yes, 40% or 100%. These things have to be dead on, spot on, 100% similar for them to be a near duplicate or an email thread. Or you can say, I've got one customer who has this dialed all the way down to 45%. That these two Word documents can be 55% dissimilar and still trigger an exact duplicate, which is insane to me. These themes, it looks at your searches. We can now have 10,000 themes, and it looks at how you do searches, what you exported, what you tagged, what you felt was important, and we generate some commonality. So at Microsoft, we've got PR a theme. We've got a forward-looking statement theme. We've got themes that you can use in here. If there's a lawsuit on Highway 5 or 75 or 85, 95, some highway, county road, you can include numbers in themes. You can adjust the maximum number of themes. So I might want to say, because this will add some time, it does take some cycles. Is this content match this theme? No. Does it match this other theme? No. Does it match that theme? No. So it takes cycles to do that theming. So I can say, hey, just do 4. But hey, if there's a theme that I missed, or maybe 10 themes should have been included here, adjust that automatically. I was working with a customer and they use the acronym THE. Well, you don't want the and the, right? We don't want the quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. So we can say ignore this text and ignore it in our themes, in our relevance. So we want to ignore the lowercase thes, but we want to catch the uppercase thes in our themes. And then we have an OCR engine. So if you take a photo, like my car, not me driving, I've never had a ticket, but my car goes through a red yellow light, and the traffic cam snaps my driver's license or my license plate, pops it into a SharePoint repository. If we don't have a tool that OCRs that image in flight between that picture being taken and that picture ending up in a SharePoint library, you will never find it by typing in the letters AZP. You'll never get my license plate. Here, if we enable OCR and that picture is in a SharePoint library, we will get that image. Now, I had a customer that said, and again, this takes cycles because we're OCRing. Low accuracy faster, high accuracy slower, but more accurate. This customer came back and said, oh my God, all these MRIs and x-rays. It was looking at all these x-rays, pictures of bones and lungs for words, and there aren't any words. And what we found was all their MRIs and x-rays were above 50 megabytes. So we said, hey, don't even don't consider things that are larger than 50 megabytes. So again, this is all cool things that help you in your review sets. Apologize there.
Tom, we've got about 5 minutes left.
Yeah, I've been trying to get through this, man. Okay. So the big thing is I can look at these analytics. Where did this content come from? Who created this content? What content has been exported? Where does it reside? And again, we can import content from outside of Office 365, which is really pretty cool. And then the beautiful thing here is that this is a fully functioning reviewing tag. So I apologize, something going on with my VM here, but I can look at my queries and I can see those queries. I can add a new query. I can look at content. I can export this content. I can do all sorts of things with this content here. Let me cancel this. I don't know why it's acting up on me in that VM, but let me get right back here. It usually works the other way, that I have troubles with this one and not with that one. So I can create new queries. When I look at this content again, and I've got different columns here. I can edit these columns. I can say, hey, when was this captured? What's the family ID? Who was it sent to? What's the file ID? Is it in a PST? So you can put all of these columns up here and then sort by those columns and look at that content. So I could see, hey, what was tagged? And one of my customers did a tagging. So when they had content, they could say, hey, I'm going to tag this for somebody else to review, like Tim or Sally or John, who's going to review this content. If you're freaked out by the size of this reviewing window, you can expand this and you can put it on, drag this window to a new monitor. But I can come in here and then in my text view, I can look at just the text. So again, if I was looking at that query, it would highlight every time the word the appeared in the file here. I didn't do that in this case. If there's content that I need to redact, I can go into an annotation view and I can redact. And we have today, now you're seeing I've got my source view, but I can add a area redaction here. Like if I don't want any of this information to be available, or if I need to highlight something, I can change the color here. I can grab a pencil and I can highlight this here as well. And then when I go to export this content, and again, I can keep review the next item, tag this as partially responsive, attorney-client privilege, etc. And then what's really cool here, if there are near duplicates, I can look at those side by side and see exactly what is changed or what hasn't changed. Again, I can tag this content. And if I want to export these items or add them to a new review set, I can export them. If there are conversation files in chat or instant message, I can have those as individual or in a conversation view. I can select only these documents to export or add to a review set or all the documents. And I can move this to my own SMB path or just download loose files. So this is a very full-featured, wonderful capability. I know we've only got 1 minute left. I'm sorry that we won't have time for the questions. I had this timed perfectly for an hour, but we started about 8 minutes in. So I apologize. I'm going to be about 8 minutes short, but I will stick around and entertain any questions, comments, or concerns that you do have. And I don't know if there are any in the chat message, Tony.
Not yet, although I've got a couple people typing.
Excellent. I am going to look at this while we're doing that, so you can see. And there is metadata here, so if I did want to look at the metadata will be shown in the reviewing panel as well. And then here's my text, so if I wanted to get to where those keywords were, you can see that they're highlighted. You can also add and manage multiple keywords, so I could come in here and modify the relevance and create new keywords in here as well. So if I had, some keyword that I wanted to highlight in a different color, it can do that. Again, thanks very much for your time today. Appreciate it tremendously. Hopefully this was good. I know you were drinking from a fire hose, but hopefully there's a lot of good information and will stimulate some ideas and desire to look deeper into these capabilities.